Okay, so this session is about uh, the individual making a difference. And so we thought we'd use slightly a different format, uh, not to have everybody do big presentations, but really get into like what they're doing, how their networks have been built, how they're making a difference, and hopefully inspire this audience that you as individuals can also do inspiring and amazing and impactful things. So to get started, what I'll do is I'll just give you my aha moment, and I told the panelists to kind of figure out when they kind of realized that they could make a difference. And mine was 20 years ago when I was trying to do a conference for the technology industry. And as I was doing that, I had a mentor, I had a board of advisors, everybody was very happy that I was doing this. But when it came to me starting the conference and actually inviting these people to be attendees, the entire advisory board said they wouldn't come. And the reason they gave was they said, it's like every other conference. I don't see why we should go to your conference. There are hundreds of these. So that forced me to think of the business model. And my aha moment was when I was driving in a car, I called my partner and said, I got it. And he says, what is it? And I said, we're going to be the first charitable technology conference where 100% of the surplus goes to charity. And it was one of the best conferences I've ever participated in. We ran it for 10 years at Pebble Beach. It was called the Enterprise Conference. And that was my aha moment is, what is a unique value proposition? If I told John Chambers he had to pay money in keynote, this was the only conference John Chambers actually paid $4,000 to actually come and keynote a conference, right? So that was my aha moment. So without that, I want actually to I'm not going to go down the line as regular moderators do, so I'm just going to start at random. Your story in 2 minutes. What was your aha moment, and what did you do?
So I guess my aha moment, I was working for two Indian entrepreneurs at Exodus Communications and had an incredible experience there in my mid-30s. And given what was happening there, and I was able to meet a lot of people and had a great experience. But my aha moment then was, what do I really want to do with the next 40 years of my career? And I decided that what I really cared about was the opportunity gap that exists in our society. And while Silicon Valley is booming and great things are happening, I wanted to make sure that we didn't evolve from a winner do really well to a winner take all society. And I realized that my passion is in creating opportunities for everybody to making the American dream a reality for the low income, the disenfranchised. And so I just went for it. I was actually a little bit not sure if I could do that or not, but I decided to make a complete career change, left the for-profit and business sector, and just joined a nonprofit. And I've been there at the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Peninsula for the last 15 years, hopefully making a difference and providing opportunities and making our community hopefully a great place for all families to live.
Thanks, Peter. That's a wonderful organization. So let's go with Julie. I know you're busy handing out money for Bank of the West, right? So tell us more.
Actually, no, but I can clarify that later. My aha moment came, I started in philanthropy a number of years ago, leading a large private family foundation in Silicon, it was based in Silicon Valley. And then from there, moved to work on my own with individual clients and families, family offices. And the aha moment came in that transition because what I realized is that here I was helping thousands, if not millions, of philanthropic dollars going to what we now know are the SDGs, or United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But nothing was really being accomplished, certainly not at the impact level we'd like to see, not at the rate we'd like to see. And I realized that there needed to be a much stronger coordination and partnership between public and private dollars. And so that's when I moved into what we call the purpose investment space. So that really is leveraging your philanthropic values with for-profit investments. And from there I worked with, many of you know Wendy Schmidt at Google, and we actually did a big project together in India outside of Varanasi, and it was exactly that leverage of public and private dollars that brought Hindu and Muslim communities together and revived the silk weaving industry there. So that was mine.
Awesome. Zack, that was a great story, and I know, Zack, you're with the Jewish Community Center here in in Palo Alto, right?
Palo Alto, right. I guess my aha moment, one of them, the most recent one, came about 5 years ago at Disneyland. You know the ride, the It's a Small World?
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay, now that song's going to be in your head the rest of the day. You're welcome. I'm bumping along this ride with my kids, and I'm looking at how each of the different cultures of the world are portrayed, right? The Indian community in their saris, and the Japanese in their kimonos, and you're traveling around the world on this boat. It's a small world. Now it's really going to be stuck in your head, right?
Yeah.
And I'm recognizing that when my kids are old enough to experience the world, they're going to see a vibrant, beautiful, amazing, exotic place. But what's going to make them love being Jewish? Because at the end of the day, that's who they are. They're Jews. I'm Jewish. My wife is Jewish. My kids are Jewish. What's going to make them love being Jewish as well as love being citizens of the world? And I realized that's my responsibility as a parent. It's on me to help them understand why being Jewish is something special. How are we going to make it meaningful, relevant, and joyous for them tomorrow? And I thought, you know what, if I can do that with my kids, if I can do that with my extended family, maybe I have a responsibility to also do that with my community.
Great. Awesome. A couple of anecdotes. My kids went to school in San Francisco in the city, and they had to end up using the Boys and Girls Club because there was not enough space for the kids. And so it was a great experience for them to kind of come to your facility and actually do that. And also with Zack, I'm a member of the JCC in San Francisco. It's a couple of blocks from my house. Love the center. So let's see. Okay, let's pick on Atul because he's the one that's come the farthest, right? From Bangalore.
So for me, it was not a singular aha moment. I grew up in a lower middle class sort of Indian family, having my uncles driving auto rickshaws and aunts having domestic help work. And I would see my dad save up every year, some for us and some for the rest of the family, because they wouldn't have any means. And so I grew up looking up to him as a role model. But growing up, you always have this fancy thing that, you want to kind of retire and then do the social work or the development sector work, which is what I did. But I think as my career grew, that notion of retirement kept moving closer to 50s to 40s. So early 30s is when I sort of started realizing I've never done anything in the sector at all. I have this, romanticized notion of doing this at some point in time later. And one Sunday I just picked up a call. There is this book called Declaring Breakdowns by a friend of mine called Samir Dua, who says, all of us have a default future. We know where it is going if we don't make an action. And if you don't declare a breakdown and change the course, we know where it's going. So I think one random Sunday in my early 30s, I declared that breakdown and started volunteering for a nonprofit and did that for 2.5 years. They asked me to take a board position, chair it. That was the beginning of my journey. And 2 years back, I shifted to the sector full time, even I was 38, wanting to fully be in this space for the second half of my career. So that's my journey.
Awesome. And just a backstory on Atul. He was at a very successful company doing extremely well. It was called InMobi. A lot of you might have heard of it in India. So senior executive there, and left that to start his nonprofit. And again, he's a very enterprising guy. I was supposed to meet him in Bangalore a month ago, and everybody knows Bangalore traffic. So there was no way for me to meet him. So he says, I'll meet you at the airport and ride with you to the first meeting, which takes an hour and a half. And that's how we first met and had a meeting. So very enterprising. And last but not least, Radhika with the Stanford Angels.
So my aha moment came on a boat trip on the Nile. I love ancient history. And I met this brilliant professor, Professor Ashok Junjunwala from IIT Chennai, who's transforming rural India with technology and a staunch Gandhian. And he reconnected me to my roots growing up in the world of the Sabarmati Ashram, Gandhian grandfather who brought a lot of policy change to help the marginalized, a father who worked for the UN, a scientist. I got a microscope before I got a doll, but I kind of was disconnected from that in a tech career in Silicon Valley. And somehow that boat trip on the Nile was very catalytic in me kind of doing a transition to become a mission-driven community builder. And since then, that's what I've been doing. One of the communities we built was in memory of Stanford professor Rajiv Motwani. I believe Asha is here under her leadership, Asha Jadeja Motwani. Just to continue spirit of helping others without expectations, and we continue that. The Rajiv Circle fellows from young entrepreneurs from India and Pakistan who come here and then continue the spirit of giving when they go back to their communities. Started a Silicon Valley chapter for Ashoka here, inspired by my mentor Bill Drayton, and most recently, also as an advisor to the SDG Philanthropy platform, looking at how can we bring global change, tackling problems like poverty, hunger, inequality, education, with the anchor of the Sustainable Development Goals, connecting global philanthropy with Silicon Valley innovation.
Great. Thank you. So again, you have 5 amazing individuals here. And one of the things is they all made the decision to do something to make a difference. But as we all know, we can't do it ourselves in the long term. So every one of these people have built amazing networks that they can make an impact. And just my story on that is, again, anything I commit to as a network, I give it 10 years, because it takes a long time in many of these things. And Atul and I have talked about it. His journey is just getting started, and the impact is going to, staying with it for the long term and really working on it where it actually takes off, right? So anything I commit to, and I've been doing this for 20 years, different networks, I give it at least 10 years to make an impact. So nothing happens quickly, even though you have the aha moment for my conference. It was a 10-year journey where we were able to collect a lot of money, give a lot of contributions to women's and children's organizations, but also more importantly to get this network to actually become mentors and board members of all the nonprofits we introduced them to. So again, all that takes an enormous amount of time. So I want to spend some time with all of you talking about that journey, right? You made the decision. How are you using, for example, the Boys and Girls Club and the network of your board, your mentors, your contributors? How do you get that network going?
The network's been a huge impact. One of the reasons I've been reasonably successful helping the Boys and Girls Clubs grow and improve our impact is the networks that I had prior. So whether it was a business school network from Harvard Business School or McKinsey, where I worked for a while, or participating in Legacy Venture or Exodus Communications, where I worked, that's been incredibly helpful, even in college as well. So that's been a great way to get introductions to people, and it just opens up a tremendous number of doors, at which point then you can inspire people to get involved. But it's been really phenomenal, and I found out the biggest reason why people do take action is actually because of networks, because of peers. There's a very interesting study about recycling, to take a very mundane example. And if you try to tell people to recycle, there's sort of 3 arguments you can take. One is you can say it's really good for the environment. Well, that didn't really boost up recycling. Then you can say, well, it'll save you money. It's economical, pay you. And that didn't really drive behavior. But when they said your neighbors recycle, that skyrocketed behavior, the amount of people who recycled. And so the analogy for us is all about creating networks of support for the Boys and Girls Clubs, whether it's staff, board, and it's all very exponential. And my development director and I always talk about connecting the dots. And everything we do is about connecting the dots. If this person's involved, we tell this person who's involved, and this person, and we've grown really step by step, really just complete with a network effect.
And tell us a little bit, Peter, more about the model. How do the boys work with people and the girls work with people in your network?
Right, so we provide after-school and summer programs for low-income kids, but when people get involved at the board level or at the donor level, we make sure that they come and actually meet the students. They engage, they see the programs, they get a real genuine sense of what has happened, so they feel that very tight personal connection. So when they go out to their networks, they're not just talking about it analytically, they can talk about it emotionally and spiritually and really feel the importance of what we're doing. Anybody
else want to jump in? Julie?
Sure. In my situation, I'd say there are 3 different parts to this networking issue, and that is initially when I was leading the Family Foundation in the Bay Area. I started much more collaborative funding within foundations around the Bay Area, and this was 15, 17 years ago. In fact, we did a grant to Boys and Girls Club at the time. So that made networks very, very critical to getting work forward, particularly around issues of literacy at the time. And then secondly, when I had my own advisory firm, networks were key because I was connecting individual donors with others, because people like to do things in groups. They don't like to be alone. They don't want to be the first investor, right? You want to come in and know that there's security. And then today, having the global platform of BNP Paribas with Bank of the West, we have a global network, basically, of funders, of individuals, large foundations, and that makes a difference in affecting, as you said, the sustainability goals.
Radhika?
So to me, the big power of networks is the linkages between different types of networks. And that is what I've been most recently focused on. For example, our community, Stanford Angels, has 900 of the most brilliant tech innovators from Stanford, alumni, students, and faculty, mainly focused on tech innovation, business, and now with the framework of the SDGs, we've been introducing and doing talks about how can we bring the most brilliant tech minds to tackle poverty globally, look at energy solutions, deal with women's empowerment, and those linkages between the SDG Philanthropy platform and Stanford Angels have been amazing. Similarly, looking at how can the tech community help Ashoka Fellows, who are solving some of the biggest social problems of the world with technology innovation. And for one example, last example I want to mention, is that we had a professor, Bani Banerjee from Stanford, one of the top guys in design thinking from the design school. He was doing a workshop in Kenya around how to advance the SDGs around early childhood education through the platform, and it was amazing. It was oversubscribed in Kenya. So we're now bringing design thinking from Stanford to solve some of the SDGs in Kenya. And these linkages really are taking people, engaging people at a whole different level and bringing purpose to the large global community.
Zack?
You know, at its heart, to me, what are networks? But networks are really just communities. And I mean, the Jewish Community Center community is literally our middle name. Communities are really what people are looking for at heart. I think people are searching for two things in life at the end of the day. They're looking for meaning and they're looking for community. They're looking for a sense of purpose and they're looking for a sense of belonging. And if you could build that sense of community, whether it's virtually, through the internet, whether it's through shared interests, or whether it's in person, I think you're going to find a much more fulfilled life. And people are looking for that. They're not looking to be, in very, very rare cases, the hermit who's living outside of society. And so we need to expend a lot more energy trying to build networks and communities in person, because that's what's going to give us that greater sense of meaning. The two things are going to feed each other, and that's a lot of what we're focusing on every single day.
Atul, I know you're from Bangalore, so there's probably a huge tech network that you have. How are you kind of bringing that in? And tell us a little bit about your foundation, because I don't think you've told us that.
So what we do is we actually bring the underprivileged young adults, 18 to 25 years of age, into a fully residential environment that we control, where we decide the stimuli to the brain, the frequency, the intensity, and the duration. And in about 100 days, the idea is to be able to take them to a point where we are able to place all of them. These are 8th dropout, 10th dropout, 12th dropout kids. And we now do about 2,000 kids a year in about 8 facilities that we call Gurukuls. And we have 100% plus placement. So 1.2 job offers on an average per student is what we do. Now, when I started, I did not come from the development sector. My entire experience was in companies like Infosys, Adobe, Samsung, Google, doing startups like InMobi. And in a way, it worked out to our favor that, the people that you could naturally go out to had a lot of resources and ways to help, but they also had very busy lives. So Hugo Barra, who was the first advisor we got on board, who's now the head of Oculus at Facebook, said, how can I live my, giving life vicariously through you? And I realized it was a very powerful statement, because everybody has a very strong intention to live a meaningful life, but we all are very, very busy. So that was sort of my other aha moment to say, oh, okay, I can actually give people opportunity to find purpose, even though they are busy in their regular day jobs, by actually giving them opportunities to support us. And we rode on that sentiment and built an advisory board of 20 people. Includes people who are, the MD of Apple India, Facebook India, LinkedIn India. We got people from education sector, the guys who started ISB, Ashoka University, and variety of people like that across sectors. And I think pretty much every single thing we have done in the last 2 years since we started Nudge Foundation is largely because of either their direct financial support, indirect connections into companies who gave us the CSR money, or even just the guidance and mentoring on how we should look at our products, the andragogy, the operations, the scale, the replicability, and pretty much everything else.
Awesome. I don't want to leave the audience out. If anybody has questions, you can come up here, or anyone has an inspiration to tell us as well. So please come forward. Any questions, any comments, any inspirations? Oh, I have to give up my mic. Okay.
Any questions, we can take them here.
Atul, you look like 20-year-old. How could you retire at 30? So that's, Zack,
Yes.
why limit to Jewish community? Why not look at other communities and the whole world? Okay.
It's a great question. We're not limited to the Jewish community at all. In fact, I was invited here by Anil Gadwani, who is a member of the Jewish Community Center Board of Directors.
Yeah, we know about you.
Dear,
Yeah,
dear
that's good.
friend. And we bring in multiple communities. We had a multi-faith, multi-community Shabbat last Friday night, where we had members of the Sikh community, members of the Muslim community, members of the Christian community. But the Jewish community is the organizing principle. The Jewish values, which in many ways are universal values, are the organizing principle
Actually,
behind
they
it.
are. And we would like to learn more about them. That's why I'm saying share them with other communities. Get everybody involved there, not just limit those events, those dollars only to the Jewish community.
Absolutely.
All right? Thank you.
Atul, any comments on how old you really
That
are?
wasn't a question.
My name is Sam Citrin. I'm visiting from Davis, California. This is my first TiEcon conference. I traveled to India when I was 16. I came back at 19, a changed person. I studied economic development at Harvard at 23. I thought I wanted to go back to India and stay there for the rest of my life and work in economic development. But I, of course, at Harvard, I learned the economic and social costs of economic development. I learned the unintended consequences, that even to do-gooders and the things that, and basically I decided as a foreigner, I'm from New York, I'm a kid from New York, that I would not try to change India. I loved India the way it was. I was confident that India could solve its own problems, et cetera. So this is TiEcon, and Thai I learned is the Indus entrepreneur, and I learned at Harvard that Indus Valley is Pakistan, Afghanistan, as well as India. And I wonder, where are the Pakistani and Afghani entrepreneurs? What is being done for those people, the bottom of, the bottom of the pyramid kind of thing? What about these underserved areas? This is the most privileged part of the entire world. I think you're bringing the world into the in Silicon Valley. And so what are we going to do?
Yeah, I can answer that. So Thai does have Pakistanis and Bangladeshis as members, and there are quite a few active ones. There's a gentleman by the name of Naeem Zafar, who's running many sessions here at TiEcon this weekend. He's from Pakistan. And Shaukat Shameen is from Bangladesh, and he's running many of the sessions. So it is an inclusive organization, and the name Indus Entrepreneurs is exactly that. But it also reflects the predominant population. India is 1.2 billion, and the other countries are smaller. So, it's kind of does it that way, but they are very involved. Okay? Next question, please. Sure, if they want to take a shot.
I'd like to jump in here, because this is something near and dear to my heart. And India is very special. Mahatma Gandhi was born there. Gandhiji's values of the dignity of all and collective action. I grew up in the Sabarmati ashram. To me, the reason I love the Sustainable Development Goals, they are universal. They are about Indians, Afghanis, Pakistanis, Mongolians, everybody. And yet, if you look at it, they do connect. They are also about leveling the playing field and the dignity of all. I believe if we all think of ourselves as world citizens, we can bridge those gaps, keeping the heritage and our roots that enrich us, and yet thinking of how we all are connected. And I think Thai is an example of, I met people from all over the world here today. But this is where the Sustainable Development Goals are really bridging the gap you're talking about, and getting us all to think of each other as world citizens and working together.
Vishwa Kudumbam, yes. Anybody else want to comment, or should we? We're really lacking a little bit of time. We got a whole bunch. Thank you so much. Next question, please.
Hi, my name is Meena Tadameti. Thank you so much to each of you for what you do. I guess my a little statement, and then I'll ask you my question. One is, as a mother of a child with special needs, 5 years ago I realized that as our typical kids' worlds are expanding, our children with special needs worlds are contracting exponentially. And in the process, the parents' worlds were contracting. A mother who can never go out to a social function without feeling a sense of peace. So that's got me started in my website called Special Needs in My City. And my question to you is, financing a social enterprise is extremely difficult. And I'm just wondering did you, any sustainable, what was the tipping point for your sustainability, and especially for you, Atul? And how do you keep this sustainable knowing that it is, sometimes, is it a social enterprise or is it a nonprofit? I don't know if any of you have contemplated that in your journey. Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's a difficult one. We are 1.5 years into our journey. We chose a non-profit model to keep the intent pure, and over a medium to long term figure out how do we dip into capital markets money, so to say. I think like any business, you have to be like, when you're working out your plan, non-profits are built at the core of compassion and empathy and need. And people typically underinvest in even thinking about how to raise money. I don't think we have that luxury at all. So I think the first step which I see most people not do is think about fundraising as a first-class citizen of your worries. The minute you put it up there, you have to think about, medium to long term, there are only few stakeholders who will pay. Either it's government, which indirectly is obviously our own money. The second is you ask people to pay indirect tax directly to you by individual giving. That is less volatile, a lot of people, friends, family, and the networks grow that we talked about. But I think in the beginning, both of these are very expensive or improbable means. So you have to probably start with either HNIs, a foundation who believes in your cause. These are sort of low investment, high probability, one large ticket size investments that you can start with. But medium to long term, you have to rely on a more stable source of, so to say, budgets every year, which is typically either individual giving or government, unless you can charge the middlemen, or rather the go-to-market partners like research institutions, in your case, maybe hospitals, insurance companies, and things like that.
Anyone else want to comment on a business model for a startup nonprofit? Zack?
I'll say the following. As a CEO of a bit larger nonprofit, our budget is now about $25 million a year. We have multiple revenue drivers. Part of it is fee for service. We run a fitness center, we have a school, we have a camp. But at the end of the day, it's still about providing that need to folks and going out and fundraising. And I think that all of us have an obligation to make sure that our job, our organization, our institution, our mission is still viable and is still wanted by the community. I'll speak and I'll say something maybe a little taboo, at least in the Jewish community, but we're questioning whether all of the old institutions are still necessary and desired by the community. So people are saying, look, I'm not associating with a synagogue or a temple like I used to, but I'm looking to get my Jewish fulfillment somewhere else. Well, it's incumbent upon these other institutions to prove that they're still necessary to the community. Otherwise, folks are going to walk. They're going to go somewhere else. So we, as leaders of nonprofit institutions, also have to say, look, what we're doing is still a value out there. It's still a need. And if folks aren't fulfilling that or finding that from us, they're going to go somewhere else and find that. Or someone else is going to start up something and find that. So even for the biggies like us, we're still out there pounding the pavement and showing that we're still a value to folks and they still need us.
Next question, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Geetika, and I've been working in the nonprofit sector for the last 15 years. Right now, I'm with Akshay Patra USA, which is one of the biggest midday meal program in India. My question here is, in my 15 years, I've worked for, like I said, national, international, and domestic organizations. I haven't seen nonprofits coming together, working collaboratively on, I understand the need is big. All these nonprofits are needed, but coming together, sharing the best practices, holistically working on one problem like education or hunger or something else. how can we do that? Is there a platform?
Julie?
I have to say that this is one of my frustrations and continues to be a frustration of mine throughout philanthropy, because there are thousands of people doing great work, let's just say, around education. But why can't we become more coordinated? I mean, even to have, like when you're applying to college, you have a common app. Why can't there be a common application for grant requests, right? Because it takes so much of a nonprofit's time. So this is a big issue of mine as well, and there are those of us that are working to look for coordinating efforts and to continually increase the efficiency of philanthropy because of this duplication. So I appreciate your frustration.
May I jump in there as well on this one?
Sure, Radhika.
May I just,
Sure. Yeah. Oh, please.
There is a platform. That's why I want to jump in. There is absolutely a platform. I'm an advisor to that platform. It's called the Sustainable Development Goals Philanthropy Platform. It's new. It's UNDP, the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, and the Foundation Center have started it. But wings of the Council on Foundations, all the top hubs of philanthropy are joining, and we are anchoring it around the SDGs. We absolutely want nonprofits, as well as the private sector, UN government, all to collaborate to achieve the SDGs as an anchor. But the goal is exactly what you're saying: knowledge sharing, funding scalable innovation, collectively informing policy, and bringing the behavior change needed to achieve the SDGs as a global community. So come talk to me afterwards. And Radhika, I know we've been chatting, but anyone interested in collaborating, I'd love to have you be part of the platform.
Awesome. Next question, please.
Hi, my name is Chokkalingam. We started Vetrivel Foundation translating Khan Academy into Tamil. My question is on the impact. When we are talking about impact, how do you balance the depth of impact versus the breadth of impact? For example, when we are translating this, we are translating the school content. Do we go to the next college content, or do we scale this? How do you balance it? And to the previous question, maybe Atul, plug for Encore. Maybe you can talk about Encore as well. We are one of the top 100 for that. Thank you.
Right. Okay. I think when we started Nudge, we said we want to take 1 million people out of poverty. And we went to government and we went to a lot of institutions who came and said, if you want to do 1 million people, why are you doing a 10 times more expensive, a 3 times longer course? And my answer to this always is 1 million times 0 is 0. So you have to first solve for 0, then you multiply. I think the problem in the development sector is, you can be giving polio drops to 100 million people in a year, or you can be giving 100 kids an education for 10 years. Both are equally required, but you should not measure the lens. The lens for measuring all this has to be different. You can't measure it the same way. There is no currency of success in any business. You have your own metrics, you have your own impact. You can't compare an e-commerce site with a hospital, right? So I think this notion of depth versus breadth is very sort of not required conversation. Every business, every nonprofit has to have its own metrics, and that has to make sense.
Anyone else want to opine on?
I'll take
breadth?
Encore offline.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just take it offline.
Okay. So anyone else want to opine on breadth versus depth?
I'll just say that's something that we struggle with dramatically at the Boys and Girls Clubs. And, to the point of 1 million times 0 is 0. We've decided this year to really double down and invest significantly more dollars per student that we serve, because we want to make sure we're having more of an impact. But I don't really know how to answer it in the sense of there's no formula we use, there's no simple solution, but it's constantly weighing the trade-offs between those two options.
I agree with Peter, and I think that you have to do both. There's a Talmudic quote that if you save one life, you save the world. And so you have to think about it from the terms of individuals. So we lead a program, a very, very small program for a dozen teens. We take them for a week to Poland and a week to Israel every spring. And some people say it's a huge investment of time and money for just a dozen kids a year. But that level of depth you can't get any other way. And then we'll have other programs that are for 600, 700, 800 people, where we're impacting people on a broader scale, but you can't get as deep on the issues. So you have to pick and choose, as Peter says, which ones you want to do at what point. But you can't. I think you have to be able to do both. It just depends on which kind of program, what you're trying to achieve.
Right. Next question, please.
Hi, this is Sachin Chaudhary. I'm the founder CEO of Trust Circle. We are reducing mental health care gap, which is the worst crisis humanity is facing. My question is to the panel, how are your organizations respectively helping reduce the mental health gap with almost over 1 billion individuals on this planet suffering from mental health issues? With one individual, there is at least one caregiver. We are talking about almost 30% of the world's population impacted. My brother was impacted with mental health issues at the age 12, and therefore this mission is very, very important and personal. So we are proud that SDGs, United Nations has included goal number 3.4 to include mental health, which is a proud moment for this world. The question is, if your organizations are focused on creating impact, is mental health a part of that, focus area?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'd be happy to address that. Mental health is just a gigantic issue for the low-income kids and their families that we're serving. The amount of stress that they're living under has gotten a lot worse since November. But just the day-to-day stress and trauma that so many of our kids are experiencing is dramatic. So we as an organization recognize that we can't help them succeed in school unless we can address the mental health issue. We are nowhere near satisfied or even proud of what we're doing yet because it's just the tip of the iceberg. I don't have the staff. It's not our staffing model, not our program model. I mean, it's so important and it's so hard. You can't just, the stuff we do is much lighter touch. So our strategy has been to partner with other organizations and bring those resources to bear. So specifically, we partner with Children's Health Council that brings in trained professionals, and they train our staff to help identify issues. So we can then, we can kind of help identify and then hand off to the CHC staff. We partner with adolescent counseling services, and going forward, we're going to be working with the Sequoia Union Healthcare District to bring those crucial resources. And it starts actually very young. Certainly the high school students, but unfortunately it starts younger than that. And it's just very, very under-recognized, but critically important service that needs to be provided.
We're running out of time, so one more question, please, and that's it. I'm sorry. We are over time.
I'm Abhay Bhushan, co-president of Indians for Collective Action, which is about 48, 49 years old. And we are helping change the world through enabling people express their passion for social impact. For example, Asha for Education was launched within it. And then Foundation for Excellence. A couple of people came and said, and my co-president Bhupen Mehta is here. And we have like Suresh Bajaj over here. He said, here to read. How can visually impaired people read? And so we're helping that effort. So it's like expressing your passion. Myself, you asked aha moments, first was starting with the internet in 69, wrote the FTP in 71. And the real reason for working there was to bring information to everybody at their fingertips. That would make a big difference. And after 4 or 5 decades, it's happened. Another aha moment, I took a year off and went to India to work in the villages to follow my passion. So what is possible? We can bring education, healthcare, everything. And that kind of just fuels the passion. So my thing today is whatever you do, think of the person at the bottom of the pyramid, which is the passion here. One thing that did not address in the earlier passion is pollution. India has most polluted cities, Delhi and starting with it. And in 1990, I was used to ride my bicycle. So we are starting with Earth Day 1990, with Bay Area Action Actera. I said, we can do it better. And it was, pollution is a wasted resource. So I would like to also focus that because when you save that, we save $6 billion in 5 years for Xerox Corporation, just by focusing on reducing pollution.
Do you have a question for the panel?
Yeah, so question is, what do you think about handling the issue of pollution and reducing waste? That's the question.
I think Radhika might address it in the Sustainable Development Goals.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So almost half of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are all around environment and dealing with pollution, saving our planet. And so one way of tackling the pollution issue and other environmental issues is bring together people who are working on these. That's what our platform does, and collaborate, share knowledge, look at what is happening. So, and on specifically India, we just launched the platform in India. I just came back from a meeting, and there is a lot of activity around looking at sustainable cities where people in Bombay, people in Bangalore are looking at collectively how can local communities in the cities work with local businesses to deal with issues like pollution and water waste management. Happy to make connections there.
Okay, one quick question. This gentleman is very insistent, so I'm going to let him in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous, but I happen to have written the best police records management system in the world in 1999. And that's,
Sorry, what was that? The best?
well, in 1999, for about 8 cities in California, I wrote the best police management records. So it's a police RMS, police records management system. And when 2001 hit and they were talking about global homeland security, I said, well, they should use my system. And to this day, the software is still running in cities like Fresno. And I'm taking it to the cloud, and I'm going to expand it across the entire nation in about 2 months for free. So we're going to save over $20 billion across the cities, because the cities can then repurpose the money they're spending for software, hardware, and databases for the public good, for the streets, for the schools, for the libraries and the parks, for housing the homeless and feeding the hungry. And so my company is called People for Public Good. We do the maximum good. And we just need a support staff that will help bring all the police departments around the country to be informed that the software is available and that they know that they can drop their existing system, have a system that's better connected and more powerful than anything they've ever seen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great job. Okay, one final thing, just 10 seconds for every participant. Project yourself and your organization out 5 years from now. Where are you going to be? Radhika?
I think where we, thinking of the Sustainable Development Goals, I think where we will be is I'm an optimist. With the power of technology and the universal framework of the Sustainable Development Goals, I think we would have tackled, if not all, several of the big problems addressing us in inequality and climate change. But it's going to take collective action. It's going to take every one of you in this room to think of what can you do to follow your passions to be part of this change.
Thank you. Julie?
And I would say, just from my own team, the Strategic Philanthropy and Purpose Investment, that we reach as many people as possible and help them learn how to leverage those dollars.
Zack?
Our vision is, thank you. Our vision is to be the architects of the Jewish future. So I think that over the next 5-10 years, the idea is that we create the hub and spoke model where the JCC can be at the center of people's lives, that people are able to do wherever and whenever they want in their homes. And as the ethnographics shift, people can take in different pieces of different cultures and different religions and different backgrounds and turn it into something meaningful for them and their children.
We'll be working with the low-income families and youth and then building a bridge between those who have more resources and creating opportunities so all people are able to access the greatness of Silicon Valley.
Atul?
So when kids are not prepared well in school, somebody has to repair when they are at 18 years of age with no opportunities. And we are adding more than 500,000 every month in India. I think with Nudge, we are trying to be the catalyst that creates a framework for how we need to do the right interventions for youth who are not prepared well. We are setting up a 100-acre campus to build the world's largest sort of skill campus, where we want to graduate 50,000 students from a singular campus every year, in the hope to actually become a catalyst for the entire skilling framework in the country and beyond.
What an inspirational panel, folks. Please give a warm applause to them.